AITA for cutting off my biological mother after she admitted she gave me up because her boyfriend didn't want kids? I've always known I was adopted. My parents never kept it from me. And in fact, they were proud of the way they told the story. They used to say, "We chose you." And that word, chosen, always stuck with me. It didn't feel like something was missing from my life. It felt like I'd been wanted, intentionally, by two people who loved me enough to bring me into their family. Because of that, I grew up with stability and love. My childhood was as normal as anyone else's, maybe even better. I had birthday parties where my mom baked the cake herself. I had family vacations where my dad would carry me on his shoulders when I got too tired to walk. I had discipline when I needed it, encouragement when I doubted myself, and unconditional love when I didn't deserve it. I never sat up late at night wondering who my real mom or dad were, because in every way that mattered, I already had them. When people asked if I ever thought about finding my biological parents, I usually shrugged. I wasn't hostile to the idea, but I didn't feel any urgent need either. My identity wasn't tied to a mystery. It was built on the foundation of the family that had raised me. That's not to say I never felt curiosity. Of course, at certain points, like during high school biology when we talked about genetics, or when I filled out medical history forms at the doctor's office, I wondered, did heart disease run in my family? Cancer? Mental health issues? Those questions were always left blank on my forms, marked with a little note, adopted. It was a reminder that there were pieces of my story I didn't know, not because my parents hid them, but because they simply weren't available. Still, it wasn't enough to drive me to search. I told myself, if it's meant to happen, it will. Then last year, curiosity finally nudged me in a direction I had avoided for decades. It wasn't a dramatic, soul-searching decision. Honestly, it was more practical than anything. I'd seen ads for those DNA test kits, 23andMe, Ancestry, all that, and thought it might be interesting to learn about my heritage. Mostly, though, I wanted some medical context. My adoptive parents were aging, and as I started thinking more about my own health and future, I figured it couldn't hurt to know what was in my genetic deck of cards. So I ordered a kit. I remember spitting into the little tube, sealing it up, and mailing it off like it was no big deal. I didn't even think twice about it after. Weeks later, when I got the notification that my results were ready, I opened the app with the excitement of someone waiting for trivia, not life-changing revelations. At first, it was fun. Charts and percentages about where my ancestors had come from. A breakdown of traits I supposedly carried. A couple of distant relatives matched in the database. Fourth cousins, people with last names I didn't recognize. But then I noticed a message in my inbox. A new one, from someone labeled Mother. It took me a second to process it. My heart started racing in a way I hadn't expected. I hadn't signed up for this to find her. I hadn't even let myself imagine what it would be like if I ever did. Yet here she was, reaching out to me through a simple app, like it was nothing more than reconnecting with a long-lost friend. I clicked it open, and there it was, a short message saying she had always wondered about me, that she hoped I'd had a good life. It was polite, kind, even, but my mind was spinning. For 30-something years, I'd lived without this woman. And suddenly, she was right there in my phone, wanting to talk. At that moment, I had a choice. Ignore her and keep my life exactly the same, or reply and open a door I had never intended to walk through. And for reasons I still can't fully explain, I chose to reply. When I decided to reply, I kept it short. I wasn't sure where the right tone should be, friendly, distant, curious, cold. So I just said something like, "Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you. I hope you're okay too." Nothing too emotional, just a polite acknowledgement. Her response came quickly. She told me she had thought about me often over the years, and that she hoped I had been raised in a good home. She said she never stopped wondering what kind of person I had grown up to be. At first, I didn't know how to react. Part of me wanted to roll my eyes, to dismiss it as empty words. But another part of me, the part that was still a little boy, deep down, wanted to believe her. Over the next few days, we exchanged a few more messages. I stayed cautious, but she seemed genuinely interested in me. She asked about my hobbies, my job, my adoptive parents, my childhood. The way she worded her questions, it didn't feel prying. It felt curious, like she was trying to catch up on a lifetime she had missed. Eventually, we exchanged numbers. I was hesitant, but I figured there wasn't much harm in it. Texting outside of the DNA app made it feel more personal, more real. We started sending longer messages, and after a couple of weeks, we agreed to a phone call. I remember being nervous before that first call. My hands were sweating, and I kept pacing around my living room. I didn't know what to expect. Was she going to cry? Apologize? Ask for forgiveness? Or would it be awkward silence? When I answered, her voice was softer than I imagined. She sounded nervous too. At first, we kept it light. We talked about surface-level stuff, the weather, our cities, little things about daily life. But then the conversation deepened. She told me about her childhood, her family, and how she had always felt a little incomplete without knowing how I was doing. As strange as it felt, there was also something comforting about hearing her voice. It was like filling in a blank space in my life I didn't realize I had. I wasn't suddenly flooded with maternal love, but I did feel something. Curiosity, connection, maybe even hope. Those calls became more frequent. What started as an occasional chat turned into weekly check-ins. Eventually, we moved to FaceTime. Seeing her face for the first time was surreal. I studied her features, trying to find pieces of myself in her. The curve of her nose, the shape of her eyes, the way she smiled. I don't know if I really looked like her, or if I was just forcing myself to see it, but it was strange and emotional all the same. I started thinking maybe this could be a good thing. Maybe it was fate that she reached out right when I decided to take that test. Maybe this was the missing chapter of my story I never knew I needed. For years, I had told myself I was fine without knowing her, but here I was feeling a cautious sense of healing. I even told my adoptive parents about the contact. They listened quietly, nodding as I explained. My mom squeezed my hand and said, "We just want you to be happy. Whatever you decide with her, we'll support you." My dad echoed the same thing. They didn't seem threatened or jealous, just steady as always. And that gave me the courage to keep exploring this connection. The first month or so, it felt like I was on the verge of something beautiful. A reunion story you'd see in one of those emotional documentaries where long-lost family members find each other and cry in each other's arms. I let myself imagine what it would be like to actually meet her one day. I wondered if she'd want to see me on holidays, if she'd send me birthday cards, if maybe we could build some version of a relationship. For the first time, I truly let myself believe in the possibility of having a connection with my biological mother. I thought this was going to be a story about healing, but I was wrong. It happened during one of our longer FaceTime calls. By then, I'd grown more comfortable talking to her, and I let my guard down in ways I hadn't before. I told her about my job, about some childhood memories with my adoptive parents, even little things like what shows I liked to watch when I was a kid. I wanted her to know that I had turned out okay. Maybe in some part of me, I even wanted her to feel proud of that. And then I asked the question that had been lingering in the back of my mind since the very beginning. Why did you give me up? Her expression changed. She hesitated, and I thought maybe she was going to tell me something heartbreaking, like she had been too poor, too young, too unsupported, that she had wanted a better future for me, and she wasn't able to provide it. That's the story you hear in movies, in books, in those tearful adoption reunions that go viral online. I braced myself for a sad but noble explanation. But what I got instead was something I'll never forget. She took a deep breath and said, "I was in love with someone who didn't want kids." At first, I thought I misheard her. I actually asked her to repeat it. She nodded and explained that when she got pregnant, she didn't tell the man she was with. She said she was scared of losing him, and he had made it clear he never wanted children. So she hid the pregnancy from him. And when I was born, she gave me up for adoption so she wouldn't lose him. She said it like it was some tragic love story. The way she spoke about him, her eyes lighting up, her voice softening. It was like she was reminiscing about some great romance. She didn't sound like a mother grieving the loss of her child. She sounded like a woman talking about a man she didn't want to lose. I sat there, frozen. My mind was racing, trying to process what I had just heard. All this time, I had assumed, if not outright believed, that she had given me up for my sake, that she had been too young, too overwhelmed, too unable to provide, that it had been a sacrifice born out of love, a way of giving me a chance at a better life. But instead, it wasn't about me at all. It was about him. She didn't give me up because she wanted me to have something better. She gave me up because I was inconvenient, because I stood in the way of her romance. And the worst part, she didn't even sound regretful. Sure, she said it was a hard decision, but the way she framed it, it was like she was reliving a bittersweet memory, not confessing to abandoning her child. I tried to keep my face neutral, but inside I was crumbling. I don't know how long I sat there listening to her, nodding like I was still engaged in the conversation, but every word was like a knife. When the call finally ended, I put my phone down and just stared at the wall. It felt like the floor had been pulled out from under me. All those weeks of building trust, of letting myself imagine this reunion as something healing, collapsed in an instant. Suddenly, I wasn't a child who had been given up for a better future. I was the obstacle in someone else's love story. I was the problem that needed to be removed so her life could continue the way she wanted it to. I can't explain how deeply that cut. It wasn't just about the past. It was about the way she told it, as if she had made peace with it, as if I should too. But how do you make peace with learning you were never the priority? That your very existence was the thing someone couldn't bear to hold on to? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying her words over and over. I was in love with someone who didn't want kids. That was the reason I grew up without her. That was the reason my life took the shape it did. And while I will always be grateful for my adoptive parents, knowing the truth of why I was given up still felt like a wound I didn't know how to close. For the first time since she reached out, I wish she hadn't. After that call, I didn't reach out to her for a few days. I didn't know what to say. Every time I picked up my phone, my mind went blank, then bitter. How could she speak about it so casually? How could she frame it like some bittersweet romance instead of admitting the truth that she abandoned me because I didn't fit into her love story? Eventually, she texted me, "Haven't heard from you in a while. Everything okay?" That was the breaking point. I couldn't keep pretending. I told her we needed to talk. When we got on the phone, I didn't sugarcoat it. I said, "Look, I don't know how you expected me to react to what you told me, but I can't just act like it didn't matter. Hearing that you gave me up not because you wanted something better for me, but because a man didn't want me, it hurts. A lot." There was silence on her end for a moment. Then she said, "You're being unfair. You don't understand what it was like. I was young, I was scared. I didn't know how to handle it." Her words only made it worse. I wanted her to own it, to at least acknowledge the damage it caused. Instead, she shifted the blame to her age, her fear, her circumstances. She wanted me to see her as a victim of her own story. I pushed back. "Do you realize what it feels like to hear your own mother say you were given up? Not out of love, but because you were inconvenient? Do you understand how that makes me feel?" She sighed, frustrated, and said, "I'm trying here." I reached out. I wanted to reconnect. Isn't that what matters? Why are you digging into the past instead of moving forward? And that's when I realized we weren't speaking the same language. To her, this was about rewriting the story, creating some version of mother-child connection that she could live with. To me, it was about truth. And the truth was that her reasons shattered the fragile hope I had built up. I told her I needed space. I said, "I can't keep talking to you right now. I need time to process this. Please don't contact me until I'm ready." She didn't take it well. She said I was punishing her, that I was holding on to anger instead of giving her a chance. She insisted I was being unfair, as if my pain was some kind of overreaction. The call ended with tension hanging in the air, her voice sharp, mine cold. Afterward, I went to my adoptive parents. I sat down with them and told them everything. The DNA test, the messages, the calls, the truth about why I had been given up. I expected them to be angry on my behalf, maybe even furious at her. Instead, they listened quietly. When I finished, my mom took my hand and said, "We'll support whatever you decide. If you want to walk away, walk away. If you want to try again, we'll support that too. This is between you and her, but don't ever forget, you've always been our child." My dad nodded, his voice steady. "You don't owe her anything. Don't let guilt drive your decision. Do what's right for your heart." That conversation grounded me. It reminded me of the difference between the family who chose me and the woman who didn't. My parents didn't try to sway me, didn't pressure me to reconcile or cut ties. They simply reminded me that my worth wasn't defined by the circumstances of my birth. But even with their reassurance, the weight of it lingered. I couldn't escape the thought. If she had told me a different story, maybe I could have found a way to build something with her. But the truth she gave me, the way she gave it to me, made it impossible. For the first time since she contacted me, I felt like I was standing at crossroads, and I knew whichever path I chose would close the other forever. After the dust settled from that conversation, I found myself thinking more about what family really means. Not in the abstract way people post about on social media, but in the concrete, lived reality of my own life. Growing up, my parents, my real parents, the ones who raised me, never once made me feel like I was less than. There was no asterisk after the word family, no caveat that I wasn't biologically theirs. They showed up for me in every way that mattered. They were at every school play, every soccer game, every late-night hospital trip when I got sick. They were the ones who taught me right from wrong, who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And then there was my biological mother, the one who had just told me that I was never more than an obstacle in her love story. The contrast between the two was staggering. On one hand, unconditional love. On the other, conditional acceptance, based on whether or not I fit into the life she wanted for herself. It forced me to confront something I hadn't really put into words before. Blood doesn't define family. Choice does. Love does. Commitment does. My adoptive parents had chosen me over and over again every single day of my life. My biological mother, when faced with a choice, had chosen someone else. For a while, I struggled with guilt for feeling this way. Was I being too harsh? Shouldn't I at least try to understand her circumstances? She had been young. She had been scared. Those were her words. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that being young and scared doesn't excuse the way she framed her decision now, decades later. If she had said, "I regret it. I was foolish. I wish I had chosen differently. Maybe things would be different." But instead, she spoke about it like it was a bittersweet love story, as if giving me up was just a necessary chapter in her romance. That hurt more than the decision itself, because what she didn't seem to realize was that her narrative erased me. It erased my pain, my existence, my humanity. I wasn't her child in the story she told. I was a complication, and hearing that from her lips was like being abandoned all over again. So I started thinking, what do I owe her? Do I owe her forgiveness just because she's my biological mother? Do I owe her a relationship simply because she reached out? The answer, I realized, was no. Forgiveness can't be demanded. It has to be earned. Relationships can't be built on guilt. They have to be built on respect. And she hadn't given me either. Meanwhile, my adoptive parents gave me both every single day. They respected me. They loved me without condition. They stood by me in this moment, not pushing me one way or the other, but reminding me that whatever choice I made, I would still be their child. The clarity of that comparison gave me peace. I realized that reconnecting with my biological mother wasn't going to heal me. It was reopening a wound she wasn't willing to acknowledge. And no amount of contact, no number of phone calls, no teary reunion could change the truth of why she gave me up. It wasn't about giving me a better life. It wasn't about sacrifice. It was about convenience. And I couldn't build a relationship on that foundation. So I started letting go. Not in a dramatic slam the door kind of way, but quietly. By not answering her texts right away. By pulling back from the calls. By creating distance. Not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. And with each step, I felt a little stronger. Because in choosing distance from her, I was really choosing closeness with myself, with my own truth, with my own peace, with the family who had actually been there for me all along. In the end, I made my choice. I stopped replying to her messages. Not in anger, not in some dramatic cutoff, but in quiet certainty. I realized I didn't need to force a relationship with someone who once decided I was disposable, and who still spoke about that decision like it was just a footnote in her love story. I don't hate her. I don't even resent her anymore. But I also don't feel the need to let her back into my life. I already have parents who love me unconditionally. I already have a family that chose me every single day without hesitation. And I refuse to compromise my peace just to give someone else closure. Maybe one day I'll feel differently. Maybe I'll find forgiveness in a way I can't right now. But for the moment, protecting my own heart feels more important than preserving a connection that only reopens old wounds. So I walked away. And now, I keep coming back to the same question. Does that make me cruel? Or does it make me honest? AITA for refusing to reconnect with my birth mom, after learning she didn't give me up out of love or sacrifice, but because I was inconvenient for her romance.